Hey guys, thank you so much for all of the support and sharing the podcast and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed already, please, what are you doing? Subscribe. This helps me out so much so I can continue this. And I really do want to continue the podcast. I think it's so much fun. I get to have these awesome conversations with people who I feel like are like way out of my league. But if you have not followed me on social media already, it's at Jeff Gruby on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Go ahead and share with me your maybe your favorite podcast episode. That'd be a really awesome thing. And I think you're really going to love today's guests. All right. Take care, guys, and take care of yourself. Hey, everyone. Today's episode is brought to you by Vivo Life. Now, we all know how important protein is to maintain an optimal diet. And me, I'm a busy dad of 2 little kids. And as much as I want to get all of my nutrients from Whole Foods, sometimes I just can't manage to make that happen. And I absolutely need the best quality foods so I can recover from my workouts and sustain my energy so I can show up and be the dad that I want to be. And that's why over the years, I was on a quest to find the healthiest and cleanest protein powder that I can use after my workouts. So what I do is I mix a scoop of Vivo Life Perform in with my post-workout recovery meal, which is oatmeal, blueberries, flaxseed. And it tastes amazing. I love it. So not only does Vivo meet the criteria I need, it also is environmentally friendly as well. It's 100% plant-based protein, and the flavor is extremely smooth compared to other protein powders I've tried out there. Part of the reason is they use fermented protein, which is the healthiest protein that you can have for your digestive system, especially mine. On top of that, it has amazing ingredients like turmeric, ginger, and reishi mushrooms. What's so freaking awesome is that Vivo Life stands behind their product, and if you don't feel the difference in 30 days, they give you a full refund, no questions asked. So I get it. We're all unique. We're all different. We have different preferences. You be the judge yourself. Go to vivolife.com, and at the checkout, use the coupon code PERFECT10 for 10% off your first order. And by the way, my favorite flavor is the banana and cinnamon. It's about growing as a person. Your best is completely unique to you. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on this episode of Fuck Perfect, and I don't even know what episode it is. I'm sure in post I'll have a nice little clip right here. It's 26. Okay, that is the official episode title. I'm honored to have Palomi P with me. If you want to give a little intro to yourself, highlight all the good points or the fun points if you want.
Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Paulomi. I do a lot of things. I'm a graphic designer by day and also night.
I I am Palomi. I do a lot of things.
I do a lot of things, guys. Like, what do you want me to say?
That needs to be your new job title.
I mean, at work, I feel like I feel like that is true. But I think stuff that I'm the most excited about right now. I'm currently freelancing for as an art director for a little game called Descent into Midnight. It's a deep sea role playing game, so definitely check that out. And I'm also I play Kieran Rao on Courier's Call, which is an all ages podcast set in the Skyjacks universe. Look up Courier's Call on the internet and you'll find it.
Nice. And you've also done, I remember seeing like a Kickstarter game that you did before too,
Oh
right?
yeah, I've done a couple at this point, but I think the one you're talking about is Noisy Person Cards, which was my first sort of art direction gig, and I think that's kind of how I got into art directing for tabletop games specifically. It's such a unique kind of challenge because there's so many moving parts that go into a game.
Uh-huh.
So I got the bug from that Kickstarter.
And so what do you do in like an art director role? Like what does that mean for a tabletop game to be an art director?
Yeah, I think it especially for independent tabletop games, it varies, right? Like the first game I worked on, it was literally just doing all of the layout, all of the like managing of the artists, all of the illustrators that were contributing to that game, making sure everything looks nice, making sure everything has like rules that they're following
Uh-huh.
as
Like
opposed to
consistencies?
exactly, exactly. But then for this most recent game that I'm working on, Descend to Midnight, it's more I'm directing the illustrators and the layout artists to make sure that again they're following along with consistencies. We're kind of developing a cohesive look for the whole game, instead of just working with one or two artists, or even doing the layout myself. It's sometimes it's nice, especially on some of the bigger projects, to have someone who's just taking care of that overarching look and feel of a game, so that you have something that feels consistent but doesn't infringe on other people's ideas of what their world might look like.
Yeah. What do you can you think of any examples of any games you've played, either tabletop or not, where there have been inconsistencies?
I think there's always good and bad examples in tabletop, especially because it's a relatively new design field. I mean,
Mhm.
compared to just standard advertising or even just like package design. Like,
Oh, I got one. I got one.
yeah,
I didn't even
hit
think about
me.
it. One of my favorite all-time games is Munchkin,
Yes.
and I think that it can quickly become it's a fun social team up game, and you're kind of nerding out with like different spells and powers and trying to interpret the rules, which is what the fun comes from too.
Hmm.
And and it can quickly get out of hand and be like, I'm just done, right? Um, and it could take hours. It could
Right.
be really really long.
Oh.
So the first time that we played Munchkin in college, and we got some of the extra packs, and then they went to like this epic pack or this epic edition or whatever it was. But all I know is Munchkin is like tan and brown,
Hmm.
and this epic Munchkin was purple and white.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking, how can I incorporate these cards and clearly not know that there's like these epic cards that are coming? You
Yeah.
know, like I feel like I couldn't even include them. Like I couldn't shuffle them in because I kind of OCD. I didn't want them to like
Yeah, yeah, you didn't
intermix.
want them to mix. Yeah.
You know, but at the same time you do. And so it's like we're trying to figure out how to play this game as a group. Like, okay, do we have a pile that's like one door for regular, one door for this epic purple white thing? And that to me was like could be an example of like, okay, if you're gonna build different little packs and add-ons and things, maybe stylize the ones that go together a little more appropriately, right?
Yeah, yeah, like, uh, that's kind of what's unique about tabletop design and art, like, after I wanna say, like, with any creative thing that you're working on, right? That was one of the big things they taught us in school, was you have to have sort of this big idea or this big thought that you're sort of laddering up to, and I don't think that's different for games, like, for a game like Munchkin or even a game like D&D, there's still that big thesis statement that you're kind of laddering up to, and everything you're creating has to kind of support that statement. Otherwise, you're always going to have this sense of being all over the place.
Hmm.
And I, I think tabletop especially, creates these unique situations where you're like, all right, not only do my game mechanics have to ladder up to this overall statement, but then the design has to as well, and it has to support those mechanics as well too. So like in the example of Munchkin, I can totally see how combining your packs I mean, I'm the same way, like combining like a purple and green one and combining the tan one. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, you have to play one game or you have to play the other game. But I
Uh,
can totally reverse engineer the idea behind that being like, oh, maybe they want you to feel that excitement when you're like,
yeah.
oh, there's a purple card at the top at the top of that stack. Like, it's so interesting because like the thought that goes into each of the mechanical decisions doesn't often go into the design decisions.
Uh huh.
Like I've seen a couple of RPGs just straight up that like the mechanics are super smart. Like they'll have there's this I forget the name, but there's this one sort of mystery solving RPG. The mechanics are super smart, and if you're a fan of like the whodunit style, um, like Poirot and Miss Marple style like shows, it's a really good game for that. But
Yeah.
then when you look at the book, all of the copy is super like scrunched together. It's like it's just designed not well, and part of me is like y'all should release a second edition of this so that it looks better, because visuals do a huge they do a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to setting the mood for something, setting the tone for
Totally. Yeah,
something.
it could keep you in the world that you're creating or take you out. And I think with
Yeah.
like the Bat the Munchkin, like if they had the regular brown cards, but like the logo on top that was a treasure or a door, like if it was colored just slightly differently
Mhm.
to make it stand out like that, like oh my god, look, because you wouldn't know the purple door was coming or whatever, and like till you get to that card.
Yeah.
I think that could be something like that's something very interesting. And thinking and talking about going back and creating a second edition,
Mhm.
I can't not talk about something since we have like I've got my Mondo Batman here.
There it
I put it
is.
there after we talked. I think you got your Mondo Bat
I've
stuff over
got
there.
a poster, yeah.
So the rumors about the Batman, sorry, Justice League remake, the Snyder cut.
Yes,
So
yes.
I will go on record of saying I'm not a super big fan of Zack Snyder.
Okay.
I'm not a super big fan of the style of his of what he kind of goes with Watchmen and Superman Returns and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and I first heard this, I was like, oh, what are they gonna do? Like, I don't want to watch Justice League again. That was like that was hurt. That has hurt me all sorts of ways. It was so bad.
It hurt me
And
physically.
so then kind of learning more about what the rumors were supposedly around and why it's on HBO. I'm not sure if you heard this and why I would be more excited about it. Well, I
Uh-huh.
am more excited now. The studios have given him $30 million to be
Oh,
like,
wow.
all right, how would you make this? How can you, Zack Snyder? What was your vision going to be?
Right.
It's not a cut. It's not a it's
It's a
not a director's
remake.
cut.
Yeah.
It's a it's a part. It's a big remake using some of the old footage. So he's going in there, and all the actors so far. This is the rumor part. So far, Batman and Superman have agreed to it.
Mhm.
Henry and Ben, and everyone else is most likely on board too to redo
Right.
their these parts and add tons of character backstory. It's going to be supposedly. This is the other rumor part. HBO 1 hour a week, 6 episodes. So it's a 6 hour movie,
Oh, man.
and it's like, holy shit! Like that got me
Wow.
so excited. But for real, it got me even more excited. So your thoughts on that part one. Part two got me more excited for how Netflix was like sort of the savior for revitalizing fan favorites that got canceled, the TV shows, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm thinking that HBO, in the absence of Game of Thrones, needed to find something that's gonna work for them. And I think a cool thing they could do, and if HBO is not listening, hopefully people can get this to HBO, is revitalize movies that should have been should have been good.
But we're not.
Pay them, pay them to make it a 6 part series of a movie. Make it really
Mhm.
have the people as many as you can come back. And obviously, there's limitations to this, but you could like, man, HBO could revitalize crappy movies and so the first thing people went to after after the news was like, oh my god, HBO's redoing Justice League. I wonder if they'll redo the last three of Star Wars. It's like
Oh no.
Uh,
Oh
and
no.
that probably will never happen. But it's like, yeah, at least people are starting to think that way. So what do you think about that?
So a lot to unpack there. You mentioned Star Wars, and I will say this about Star Wars shows. So far, I have enjoyed Star Wars shows 10 times more than the actual movies because you can spend a little bit more time in a world and like get those little world building elements, and that's
Hmm.
why I'm here for Star Wars. Like since the very beginning, basically every background character has had some kind of backstory, some kind of like, this is how they got here
Hmm.
before you actually see them in a scene. And I think shows like The Mandalorian, The Clone Wars, they all do that so much better than the movies have for a little while now, I feel. I mean, like even we won't talk about the prequels. I still love episode 1, but it has everything to do with the costumes and nothing to do with anything else. But like it kind of thinking about that in the terms of a Justice League show, like a 6-hour film as opposed to just having a 2.5-hour movie. Like I grew up watching Bollywood films, and they on average are like 3.5 hours. They're not like the 1.5 to 2 hour sort of format that we're kind of seeing.
Hmm.
There's an intermission in between, but you end up covering so much more ground even in just 3 hours than you do if you're sort of
Oh, for
constrained to
sure.
two. And a lot of the stories that were told in Bollywood films because of that sort of stick with me a little bit more because you get a little bit more out of it, right? Like I feel like the way movies have worked has become less and less about how technically proficient they are. Like, when they first sort of started, it was about being able to use a camera and being like, that's awesome. And then every groundbreaking movie that's existed has always been using those techniques in tandem with the story that you're trying to tell.
Hmm.
And I feel like the longer format something becomes, it's just more opportunities to just really hone and craft each of these scenes so that you're just getting the most impact out of them. I think where a lot of long form storytelling falls short, and this is true of Game of Thrones before it was terrible. Sometimes filmmakers tend to ramble. So if like especially with the Justice League, like I think there are enough characters in the Justice League for you to really dig into like Aquaman for an episode or Batman for an episode and really establish the character in that particular canon. And I think if that's how they sort of end up formatting it, it's like maybe the first 5 episodes are like, here are these 4 or 5 different narrative strands, and then the final 2 or 3 episodes they like tie it all together. Perfect. Let's do it.
Yeah, and that's where Infinity War and Endgame for Marvel kind of fit because they spent
Yeah.
so many years developing characters.
Oh yeah.
And then for the characters they whether it was they're trying to rush to the finish or they didn't really care too much
Yeah.
about the development, they're like, okay, here's a Doctor Strange, here's like Captain Marvel, like throw these in there and then boom, like you have this insane thing. I'm like, okay, DC, if they copy that, they can do obviously Superman Returns, Batman versus Superman. Now
Yeah.
let's just slow it down before we go right to end their version of
Yeah.
Endgame. They didn't have any of that going on. They just were trying to copy on the tails of it as opposed to being something good, right?
Yeah. I feel
Um,
like the mashup or the when they brought everyone together for the first time in a way that I felt was actually truly successful was Civil War,
mhm,
because you followed Iron Man's story, you followed Captain America's story, you
mhm.
saw how important Iron Man's dad is to him. We see how important Bucky is to Captain America. And then when it all kind of comes to a head in Civil War, you're just like, I don't know whose side I'm on. Like, this is heartrending because these two people care about
Yeah,
all of these different things. And that's why they can't see eye to eye on this very fraught issue. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that movie was so much more successful than Infinity War and and you know, just like the whole Thanos plot line, because after a certain point I was like, there are a lot of characters here that I'm not nearly as invested in as I am in Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
So it, every time someone else shows up, I'm like, you're not Captain America. Like, I'm sorry, Gamora. You're cool, but you're not
Yeah.
Steve. Give me Steve. And it's because we don't spend that much time with the Guardians of the Galaxy before Infinity War. They're two movies and they're really fun movies.
Yeah.
But like, we spend so much more time with Thor and his whole arc. We spend so much more time with Captain America, Iron Man, and like the big three or four basically.
Gotcha.
And I feel like as a result of that, it's like you have to pick less and just really hyper focus in on them, as opposed to, trying to just get a full smattering. You can get more
Sure.
movies out of more people and like, mash them up in different ways, but it especially like the whole Nebula Iron Man connection, I'm like, these two people have not been connected to each other at all, and then all of a sudden
Yeah. I thought
they
it had,
are.
and it was, and the thing is, it was good. Like, you're like, holy crap, I want more of this.
Right. I want to explore how different members of the team connect to each other. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I liked the Justice League animated series, is because you got mashups every episode. Like Green Lantern would be hanging out with Hawkgirl, and you would, you know, get a little bit more of a peek into how they
Yeah.
related to each other. Or Superman would suddenly like be paired up with the Flash, and you're like, oh my god, this is gonna be hilarious.
And
And
that's
like, you
the other
can
thing
spend
too.
time with that.
That's really baffling when it comes to DC. Is like, for some reason, whoever's in charge of the DC animated world
Hmm.
is been crushing it for
Dude.
longer. Maybe the same time frame, but almost, I feel longer. Well, yeah. If you go back to DC, go into like say Batman the animated series,
Mhm.
DC's been crushing animated just forever,
There are a
and their
lot of villains
movies.
in Batman the Animated Series.
And
Like,
the villains are great, and
oh
the
man.
movies, the anime movies are great, and then even the TV shows are enjoyable. And then they eventually they jump the shark for me, and I'm like, ah,
Yeah,
okay, okay, you keep
good.
going. I'm gonna go over here now. But the thing is, like, they have a good fan base,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Marvel doesn't have that for TV shows and for animated. And like, how is it that DC gets it there and doesn't get it on the,
Yeah.
and it's really weird to me. I was like, man, maybe you guys should just stop all of it and just get the top tier actors like Henry and Ben to do the voices of Batman and Superman over the animation.
Mhm.
Like, let that just be the thing.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because there's so many places, especially in the latest Justice League movie, where you can totally see that a call was made by a producer and not a writer, and not
Uh-huh.
someone who's like paid to write stories. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
a producer, they have money, but they pay other people to write stories because they can't do it themselves.
Oh yeah. No,
And they're
it's
still trying to write the story.
I'm sure you can relate in terms of a regular job, or even my job. I can say more openly as like a health person. It's like, you're paying me to help you with this area, and then you're
Mhm.
gonna fuck it up and tell me what you want to do now. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
not gonna work. It's not gonna work. I don't.
It's one of those, and it's like, at the end of the day, healthcare, like, you're saving lives at the end of the day.
Hmm.
But with creative things, it's like, you know, especially the people who have the purse strings are so afraid that their investment is not going to pan out. Those those fears are what propels them to make calls like that. Like, no, we
Yeah.
have to do it this way because it's going to produce the most amount of money in the long term. And it's like, what produces the most amount of money in creative industries is inherently not the best storytelling thing to do, because you are pandering to the lowest common denominator. And not all stories are
Sure.
like, there are some stories that are ubiquitous, but it's the plots that are ubiquitous, not the details. When you're talking to different people, it's something they teach you in communication school. When you're talking to different people, you have to talk about different points, otherwise you're going to lose someone. And
Right.
producers are coming from that mindset, but creatives are just like, no.
In some companies in the realm of gaming, when they try to sell something to a gamer,
Oh yeah.
and I'm like, um, as a gamer myself, I look at some of the things I see being sold. I'm like, I don't really care. I don't care what picture that they use. I don't care what headlines are used. I don't care what features it has.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I want to know, is it good,
Yeah.
and will it and sort of complement my existing experience as a gamer now, and
Yeah.
then I'll go to like reviews or things like that.
And there's
And
specific
so
things you're looking for in those reviews too. Like, not necessarily if it's good or bad so much as this is the thing that they have and this is how good or bad that specific thing was.
I still haven't gone to a wireless mouse.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I see all these companies like wireless mice. I'm like, no. I
No.
did it. I did it once. I'm like, no.
I'm serious about needing no lag.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys.
If any of my issues exist, I want it to be not of my own choices
Yeah.
of equipment. I
Yeah.
want it to be issues of like, oh, the power went out, the internet went out, or like I pressed the wrong damn button. Oh my god! Like Uh,
not
so
not
yeah.
a hardware issue. Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, like the way games are marketed versus what people actually value about them. I think the latest Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, a lot of the people in my circles, the reason why they love that game had absolutely nothing to do with the way it was marketed. Like,
Mhm,
it it I think it's one of the first Assassin's Creed games. I think it is the first Assassin's Creed game where you can choose between a male and female character. And a lot of the folks that I know went with the female character even though she wasn't, like, guys and girls. It didn't matter who.
mhm,
They just felt more of a gravitation towards her for whatever reason. And a lot of the folks that I know, um, it, they chose her even though the marketing was like very staunchly like the guy.
mhm,
And they played through the games and they have these huge attachments. I do too. Like, I have this huge attachment to the game, and it's to Cassandra specifically, not to Alexios, who's the male character. And it's so hard to quantify. It has absolutely nothing to do with, like, for me at least, it has absolutely nothing to do with like feminism or like anything like that. She's just so much more of an interesting character. Like, all of the things that happen seem to matter more when it's with her versus like the guy playthrough. And there, like, something happened with the DLC where I forget how. I didn't actually play the DLC, but it sort of like deviates or like almost like forces her story into a certain direction to like match Alexios's, and people were pissed. Like, they
mhm.
were not happy about it. And it just like it makes me, it really highlights that difference between a producer made this call because they were like, it fits the marketing, but then people weren't responding to the marketing. They were responding to their experience with the game that they chose. And it's like, y'all made a call to pander to the lowest common denominator, and it didn't work. You made people mad. Don't do that again.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I think about so many like health products in general, like when they're
Mm,
the way they're marketed and how misleading it can be. And it might be something like 90, 97 or 98, or I mean, just a very high percentage of like of health products that are just mismarketed, and they're not only they're mismarketed, they're designed to uh, keep people confused, keep people struggling, keep
Oh,
people whatever it
yeah.
is. Whether it's like a food product in the store or like a supplement that you buy, you think it has a claim that it's going to do something for you,
Yeah.
and there's and the way things are marketed can be really really bad, and that's the thing, like where I kind of almost shoot myself in the foot because I don't want to help people that want to aesthetically just like just arbitrarily like say lose 10 pounds or like I want to do this. I'm like, but
Right.
why? Like I'm really interested in the mindset because I want to help people be healthy for the long term. And healthy does not mean that you have abs of steel.
Right.
I knew a guy who did a body competition, and he's just absolutely shredded. He looks like what they look like, and
The ideal version. Yeah.
the next day he's in the hospital for kidney and liver failure. It's like, but you have abs, right? So it's
Right.
like
Like,
right the idea of like health is not this appearance, and that kind of goes into marketing of like there's marketing these products, the appearance of what you're getting,
oh yeah.
um, and it's really fortunate for me to so when I kind of go looking for things, it's like people come to me and say, hey, what what do you think about X, Y, or Z? I'm like, I don't know. There's like millions of this shit out there.
Yeah. Tell me more about you first.
All
Like,
yeah, like tell me about you, but all I can give you is my people I give my recommendations to, and how I start looking for something is like, what is the best? So I start
yeah.
asking, what's that question? Not not like, um, what are all the products underneath the best? So usually I'm already in a smaller window of piecing things together, and I found some stuff. Um, Actually, probably good splice for a product placement to go or a sponsorship to go after this right here. But but yeah, like and for me, like I won't help people if they don't really want to be healthy. That's and I think there's this mismarketing about whether it's a game. Oh, a great example of this. Did you see? Hope I don't get sued by 1,000 companies in this episode. Have you seen the trailer for the new League of Legends?
I think so.
It looked like amazing. Like it. I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's a barrage of characters that are all like breaching this building and taking this thing. I mean, these epic fights. I mean, the cinematic and the story. Like, holy
Yeah.
crap! I want to play that game. That game looks insane. Meanwhile, like, no, League of Legends has not changed. It's still it's still a MOBA. You are not playing that game. That is
That's a
not the game you're
different
playing.
game. It's a completely
And
different game.
so
Yeah.
so the idea is like there's this marketing for this video game, and it's like, hey, you want this? Everyone's gonna be like, yeah, that was badass. Then you go to play, and you're like, what
That
is this?
this is not the same
I
thing.
have to
Yeah.
poke. I have to go in and out and in and out, and then go and get these little. I'm like, this is not the game that I watched, right? So it's like this mismarketing thing.
Oh yeah.
Um, with Mass Effect 3, which I was pretty stoked at playing years ago.
Mhm.
Um, they had all this like Commander Shepard stuff
Oh
where
yeah.
what you looked like. And every time I would go in, and you reminded me of this talking about Assassin's Creed. Every time I'd go see the marketing, I'm like, that's not what my Commander Shepard looks like.
Right, right, exactly.
And I identified with
Exactly.
the one that I made and the one that I was playing.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, you really kind of taking me out of this, like
It
in the
it
way that they
it
did.
shatters your immersion when they, like, double down on this generic version, and they don't lean into the fact that people related to the game in wildly different ways, even
Yeah.
though the subject matter is more or less the same. Also, real quick, I need to plug my headset in, so give me a second here. It did a little boop boop when I was like, I don't know.
And then Matt, the the catastrophe of Mass Effect 3's ending, like how
Oh,
it was all the same, right?
yep,
It was
yep.
all the same.
No
I
matter
remember,
no matter what you did, all roads led to like one. it felt like all
Yeah,
those
so
like emotions were going.
there was no real choice. And like, have you
No,
never read a choose your own adventure? Like,
exactly.
typically they
Typically,
end
there are a couple different
differently.
choices in the choose your own.
Yeah, even if it ends like real early, like good job, you know,
Yeah,
good job, it's over.
good to go.
I remember the first time I watched one of the Final Destination movies that they had choose your own adventure style,
Oh yeah.
where you're on a roller coaster, and the first thing I did, it's like, okay, movie's over, they all lived. I'm like, oh, I guess I gotta go back and watch the movie again, you know. So like, anyways, it's I think we can go on and on and on for so much time, but
Totes. Yeah.
for people who have not understood what we really were talking about, everything was exactly what it was meant to be, and the whole idea of this podcast of being thought perfect is not to be perfect in any way, but to embrace progress and
Hmm.
embrace that the uniqueness that flaws can bring,
Yeah.
and a lot of times mistakes happen and you're like, holy crap, this was amazing that this happened this way, right?
Yeah. Totally.
Or if you are focusing on progress rather than perfection, because you're never going to have a perfect game, a perfect movie. There's in terms of Star Wars or DC, there's always going to be fans and then not fans. And there's that funny meme or quote where it's like the people who hate Star Wars the most are the Star Wars fans, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's no such thing as perfect, but there will be progress, right?
Yeah. I
And
I
so,
also feel like nothing all of the things that have been super like all of the greatest inventions, all of the like coolest things that we as people have done, whether it's like as humanity or as individuals, have all been by accident.
hmm
It's this thing where you weren't trying to do well on purpose. You kind of just stumble into it. And I feel like, as a recovering perfectionist myself, it's been embracing the idea that like whether something goes well or not is ultimately like you have to take that you did a good job out of something, and if
hmm
it goes like insanely well, you got lucky.
yeah. I really like that term, recovering perfectionist.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really awesome because it can be so uh, riddled with pain
Oh
that
yeah.
I mean, basically, when I talk to people about perfection is seeking pain, because
Yeah.
the perfection is not going to exist. You're never going to get there. It's you're setting yourself up for this constant disappointment,
Yeah.
and the idea is like for someone who's creative or likes things like to improve or become better, like you or me, you can always say like, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do. The ideas just don't stop, and that's
Yeah.
sort of the problem,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
if my brain would have shut up for a minute, maybe I could be happy with this. And I used to think, 99% or 100%, 1 to 99 was still sucking. You know,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
needed to be 100. Especially if you are at 99, you're like, you're so close. Why can't you get just one more percent? You just did
Yeah.
99%. But if you look at like a test, you're like, for me, if you got 99% on a test, oh, that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I guess that's pretty solid. But when it's me creating something or me trying to do something
It's a
else,
totally different game. Like you want to do 100%. And I think like being in therapy helps, at least it helped
hmm
me kind of like recontextualize that sort of that grading system is when you're grading yourself, it's not coming from your brain. It's
hmm
not coming from like inside your head. It's coming from outside of you. And the more and more you're sort of motivated to be perfect, I feel like the more and more you get further away from yourself. You know what I mean? Like the more you
hmm
try to be perfect, the more you're doing it for other people. You're not trying to be perfect for yourself. You're doing it for reasons outside of your own. And it's
right.
got to be this thing. It's got to be this thing that comes from inside your brain. Your brain meats.
hmm Yeah, I think with like social media, people posting pictures of them like
Oh yeah.
climbing and the interesting thing of like people exploring, going to these high mountains and different landmarks because they want the picture that they can
Oh yeah.
post, right? And it's like, who are you trying to appease here? You know, like if you're
Mhm.
seeking this judgment, of being perfect, like that,
Yeah.
and then some people say, "Oh my God, my marriage, my relationship, my such and such is so perfect." I'm like, "Oh my God,
Sounds exhausting.
something's real bad underneath." Something's
So
and and that's sort of where I come into helping people in their health. It is, uh, let's make progress. What do you want to make
Mhm.
progress on? Let's just keep going. You hit something like, okay, that didn't work for you. Let's not do that anymore. Let's do something else. And let's
Yeah,
keep
you
making progress because people go like January 1st, I'm gonna change
oh my
everything.
god.
And then
Yeah.
they go like I'm gonna exercise, I'm gonna eat cardboard and lettuce, and I'm gonna and they go on like these, they eat too little, they change drastically what they're eating, they're not happy with
Oh
their
yeah.
time, they're not happy with the food, they're
You
not
can't stick
happy.
with that. It's untenable. Like,
It's if you yeah, if you can't do something like happily and enjoy it and see that you can
oh yeah.
stick with it forever,
Oh yeah.
then you're not gonna have the results forever. And so
Mhm.
that's why I'm like, okay, what do people what do you like in the long term? And then sometimes I'll have people that'll say, I don't know, I just want to lose this now. I'm like, well then go find someone else to work with because I said I don't want to fuck up my winning streak right now. I have a pretty good streak. And I that's a quote. I tell them,
Direct quote.
it's a direct quote.
I
I
love it.
said, if you're, I have a pretty good streak going on and helping people, so you can't fuck this up.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but
uh,
it's so true. Like, especially when I mean, like you were talking about how we have such a skewed sense of what different health foods and health like supplements and stuff are supposed to do. It creates this narrative of like, oh yeah, it's just as easy as, mind over matter. And it's like, no.
yeah,
I mean, like today's a great example. I worked out. I did some weight training yesterday for the first time in a couple of months, and
nice.
I like weight training a lot. Like I finally found a kind of workout that I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm getting all of the feelings that I want to get out of a workout from this thing. I like weight training for all of those reasons, even though it's a little bit higher impact. But because it's been so long, I obviously am very sore today.
Yeah,
And I woke up. I went to bed really early yesterday because I was exhausted. I went to bed at like a 9:45. I woke up at like 9:45, 10 o'clock today, and I'm like, oh my god, I slept for 12 hours, and I was like kind of mad about it. But then I thought about it, and I was like, no, that makes sense that I slept
yeah,
for 12 hours. I needed
yeah,
to because I was physically exhausted, and I needed like my body needed time to repair itself. That's
absolutely.
not stuff that people tell you when they're marketing
No,
supplements.
no,
Like,
it's wild because everything works within reason, within common
right.
sense. Like everything works. It's just how long did you do it, and did you like it? No. Okay, then find something else.
Yeah,
Just find
exactly.
something you like to do.
Yeah,
If you don't like for example, like I'll tell you one thing that was weird. So I haven't eaten like meat in a couple of years.
yeah,
Um, I always thought I would always be eating meat,
yeah,
even with the facts or no, I shouldn't say, even with the information I had. I was like, no, I really do like eating meat. And then I kind of was like, okay, let me at least try
yeah.
this, see if it does work for me. And I was like, oh, I really do enjoy this for a mountain of reasons. So this is okay for me. Other people, if they don't want to do it, don't do it.
Y
You know?
you don't have to think that hard about
Yeah,
what's good for you, and I feel like that can be so, uh, confusing. Like, you're like, "Wait, I don't have to, like, make sure I'm taking a vitamin at a specific time of day every day for the rest of my life?" Like, if you, like your body knows if the vitamin
yeah.
is working for
If
you.
it causes you more anxiety and more
Oh,
stress
yeah.
and lack of happiness, then it's probably not good for you
Yeah.
at all. If in fact, there's this study that was done where they took like, a bunch of old guys, like in their 70s,
Yeah.
uh, and they had them on a retreat, and they said, "Okay, we want you to pretend and act like you did when you were in your 50s."
Yeah.
So they did all these blood tests, and doctors marked like certain things about their health. And then at this little retreat, they had the TV program to what would have been on and when they were in their 50s, uh, literature, newspapers, things like that. And they said, act like you did, move your body like you did, just full on believe you're 50. After the duration, and I think it might have been 30 days or maybe 3 months, um, they tested them again with their blood markers and all their doctor
Yeah.
stats,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they reverted their health back to when they were in their 50s.
Nice. You just yeah.
It's like, holy shit, happiness really is a big part of it. So if something's causing you too much stress,
It affects us like
even if it's super healthy to eat a sweet potato or eat a
yeah,
salad, if you're stressing out over it,
it's offsetting all of the good stuff that you're getting
mhm,
out of that thing. Yeah, 100%. I
yeah,
like stress affects us. Like there have been a lot of studies on how stress affects anyone, and like even that, I don't think totally gets at the core of like how stress just screws up your body, especially over time. Like there have been studies too of like, oh yeah, people in Italy, they're old, they're old as heck, and they smoke every day, and they drink wine every day, and they eat like inordinate amounts of chocolate every day. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're living long, not because they're not despite doing those
mhm.
things, but because they're doing those things because they want to. Like,
Yeah, there's all these things they're called blue zones. Like they're blue zones where there's certain cultures that do similar things and have the longest life
yeah,
expectancy, and the stress is the least part of the lack of stress is a big factor in there.
yeah,
And the CDC and Harvard has said, like flat out, that all of the illnesses and diseases that we get, 95% of them stem from stress.
hmm
That is crazy, crazy. And then as I was thinking about saying that out loud, I was like, man, if I say the word CDC nowadays, that's gonna trigger people's feelings. And I'm like, shit, it used to be a good thing.
yeah.
It used to be 100% like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Now it's like, well, if they said it, I'm like, oh my god,
Come on, guys.
I
It's
can't get
listen,
this right.
CDC is hot right now, so if it's hot, it's controversial.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Basically.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So, in what area you said you're a perfectionist? In what areas do you think you sought perfection, or at least what one area did you seek perfection the most that you changed?
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like for a lot of perfectionists that I've talked to, it always stems from something in their childhood. Like if you really just get down into it, it was, and for me, it was for the longest time. I still struggle with like positive body image issues, and for a really long time, like since I was super super young, I I mean was super preoccupied, and like as a teenager, it sort of just skyrockets. Like how
Mhm,
focused you are on something gets so much more focused when you're a teen, especially when it's like body image, when it's am I too fat, am I too like whatever. And I look at pictures of myself when I was a kid now, and I'm just like, there's nothing for me to worry about. Like it's fine, I was fine. But
yeah,
because my own internal narrative was reinforced by external narratives from whether it was like a parent or just people that I spent time with, or just the way people talk about body weight, it turned into this hyperfixation that led to a lot of disordered eating when I was really
mhm,
young, led to a lot of stress like we've talked about, just from um, not being able to give my body what it was asking for. It was a lot of me just denying myself the things that, now that I think about it, I'm like, that's scary. I should not have been saying no to needing to eat when I needed to. Like, and therapy helps. Like having a nutritionist, I think, has been more helpful to a certain degree, especially now that I'm in a frame of mind where I can like I want to give my body what it needs. I
mhm,
want to take care of it and listen to its cues and all of that. But I think, that's where all of the perfectionist sort of tendencies kind of stemmed from. And then it branches into so many different parts of your life too. Like okay, I can't control this thing, so I have to find other places to like put this control energy, and suddenly you're just so unhappy because you're just like stressing out about everything.
Yeah.
It's just the absolute worst. Like, I think only recently has it kind of eased a little bit in my personal creative endeavors.
Uh-huh.
I had this idea of like, well, if I'm gonna have a hobby, it has to be art, because I used to be an artist when I was a kid, and I have to continue that. And finally, I'm just like, it can be whatever. It All
Yeah.
that needs to happen is I need to be having a good time while I'm doing it, and that's why I've thrown myself into role playing games, and I've thrown myself into dabbling a little bit in writing, as opposed to painting or drawing or feeling like I should be good at something. It's not it's not the kind of visual output that I'm used to judging and saying yes, this is good, or no, this is bad, but it's still making me happy, and that ultimately is the goal of being creative, is making something that makes you happy.
Hmm. That,
Yeah.
that's actually really beautiful and awesome. And I think for me, kind of to piggyback on that
Yeah.
is embracing uncertainty. Because
Yes.
before it was like this perfectionist control thing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't really like uncertainty too
It can be
much.
really scary when you're a perfectionist.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's not the whole. I have 1,000 steps in this one direction, and if we veer off at step 10, then there's a lot of things we don't get to, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
And and so yeah, this embracing uncertainty and embracing progress and gratitude. Like I think gratitude is the thing. Is like if I think, okay, what am I grateful for today? I can kind of frame what I did get done. Okay, I am happy with this,
Yeah.
and it's a weird balance of like growing as like personal growth and also being grateful for what you have.
Yeah.
And I still don't understand it, but I know that there's this weird hypocritical thing too. It's like, well, if you're grateful, then you're not growing, right? Like you don't need to grow anymore.
It,
But it's like, but there's a weird thing where you're kind of pursuing this growth, and I'm like, wow, all these really. I started thinking about in my life, when have I been happiest with uncertainty?
right.
And I'm like, okay, and I can pinpoint all these times where like, wow, these are all very significant,
Mhm.
shaping my life a certain way. Even meeting Emily was very,
Oh
very
yeah.
uncertain for
You
me.
have to be vulnerable and put yourself out there when you're trying to take a relationship, even if it's just a friendship, to a certain step. Like, if
Yeah,
you
and so
if
I
you are taking a chance on something, you're risking a lot, but then
yeah,
when
yeah.
it does work out, it's so much more satisfying.
And so then I realized, oh yeah, maybe I do like uncertainty,
Mhm.
and I kind of like eased up on
Yeah.
on how things gotta go. So what
Yeah.
do you got working on next, Blowy? What are you working on next?
So, gosh, right now I've got a couple of games that I'm sort of just, you know, hopping between. Every other Thursday I play one D&D campaign, and then on the other Thursday I play another D&D campaign, and I'm not running anything. I'm just playing a character, and it's just thinking about those characters, thinking about how to characterize them, how to like play
Mm,
to their strengths, how to like make sure I'm having a good time with these games. And it's it's especially role playing games. It's a lot of creative effort for a game that you're playing. Like, if you're playing chess or something, it's not creative in sort of a free form way. It's creative in a critical thinking, like problem
hmm.
solving way. And with role playing games, there's no stakes if you don't play something a certain way. You don't lose anything necessarily, but if you don't like the way you played it, your enjoyment of that game kind of diminishes a little bit. So,
You know, That's a huge topic because you
Yeah.
think about the state of game. Probably, I don't think any of the people that listen to this podcast are talking about games or know games that well, but deal with it. So the huge topic of games, like right now, in my opinion, is like the metas of things.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and I think that totally crushes the creativity of a game.
Oh,
And
totally.
when I'm a huge World of Warcraft fan,
Mhm.
and when World of Warcraft came back for Classic, and I'm like, oh my god, people are, and there was like a small period of time where, I mean, like small as in maybe a week,
Yeah.
where it had super nostalgic feelings, and everyone's being kind, everyone's like forming lines to get quests done, like
Yeah,
being
yeah.
super considerate, and then sort of like this hype train kind of comes through. I think it goes through every game. Like, oh, it's this, and they get like, they go through, and usually the angry mob of the internet, whether it's a social media group or if it's a gamers, and the angry mob came through, and it just, people said, all right, let's just focus on metas, and I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, this was about back in the day. Like, there was so little information that was out there about this game.
Yeah.
People could explore. People didn't have the potions and the buffs and all the little nuances, and they
You
didn't
didn't have
focus
to
on.
worry about all of that overarching stuff. It was just a discover like, it was
It was
discovery. That was the
discovery and
whole point
say,
of the game.
and okay, we're looking for 5 people to do this dungeon. Let's just take 5 people. Now
Yeah.
it's like we're looking for 3 of this type of class to do this dungeon, and that's it. And you
Yeah.
need to be this level, and you have to be that level because it was easy.
Yeah,
And
you
at
have
the
to do this to
time,
do that so you can get this, like.
when Warcraft was there, me and
Mhm.
my friends were like, "Hey, we finally got to this the time the finally got to the level where now we can enter this dungeon. Should we
Yeah.
be there? No, right? Probably because our gear was sucked and our play skill was bad. And we're like, hey, we can finally get in this. Let's go in
Yeah.
and try to do it.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
if we got to the very last boss and we couldn't do it, we at least, we had fun. We were exploring to the stuff. And then the idea of this meta, like meta in all these different games, you have to play this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. Make sure you have this point here, that point there. Oh, what
It's
are you,
not
stupid? I'm not
self-motivated
bringing you for having,
ultimately.
like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm trying to be creative here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's gotta be that self-motivated. Like, I mean, the same goes, like, Animal Crossing came out recently, and I've been super into that game. But I hopped off for a little bit because I got so bogged down in, like, oh, in order to catch this fish, you have to be here at this specific time with this specific thing. I'm like, that's
That's too much.
legitimately not why I'm playing this game. I'm playing this game because it's cute as hell.
Hmm.
I want to say hi to a virtual villager, and, like, that's it. Like, that's it's just cute, and I just want to be present and, like, having fun with the cuteness. Like, I don't want the fish. I don't care about the bugs. If I
Uh-huh.
catch a cool new fish, I want that to be a surprise. I want that to be like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I
Right,
wasn't
yeah.
expecting this to happen. Hey, cool. Like, I'm not trying to complete Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing played as a completionist. I don't understand
Mm,
how that can be fun.
and
It
so
can be
I
for other people, just
and
not for
that's
me.
probably the reason we recently started playing Zelda Breath of the Wild
Mhm.
last year, or
Yeah,
around last year.
that's another good example.
We I never played any Zelda game my entire life.
Uh-huh.
And so I played it, and I was like, "Holy shit, you can do anything in
Anything.
this game." And
Open.
there's like, there really are hardly any rules, and there's no one like, "Oh, we don't want you doing this. We're gonna patch it, and then we're gonna fix it."
Yeah.
There's like, and then on top of that, the Nintendo even like retweets and shares things that they didn't expect to be happen. So there was a time where Emily and I didn't have like this like special armor, this swimming armor. You can swim up a waterfall, and so to get up a waterfall, we used the ice thing and like made. I jump on one and make one over here and jump and like hop back and forth
Uh-huh.
to go up this. And it took forever.
But you
And if
got there.
but we got there, it was not time efficient. It wasn't. We knew it wasn't the right way, but we were like, "Damn it, we want to get up this thing." And that idea of like speed, the idea of speed runs in the game that you could do in 35 minutes,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, what? This game
What?
took me like almost a 70% of a
Yeah,
year and casually. It's that kind of creativity is just, and look at the results, right?
yeah.
Like everyone says, I got to switch. What do I got to play? Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild has to be. Because
Yeah.
you can do whatever. You can get whatever you want to get out of the game.
Hmm.
You don't have to get the same thing everyone else gets out of it. Like,
Yeah.
if you just wanted to herd horses in Breath of the Wild, go for it.
Yeah.
All you, dude.
Yeah.
Like, $60 game, go for it. Horse
Nice.
simulator. But like, and then
Nice.
that's the thing is like that's how that person wants to play it. Go for it. It's the thing where like I feel like a lot of folks on the internet assume people want to like have sick gamer strats about all of these games, and it's just like, nah, dude. I just wanted to play because I was having a good time. The thing that I got out of Assassin's Creed was I liked sneaking around. And there are people who are like, no, you're not supposed to kill everyone in each of the fortresses. I'm like, I did. It was fun.
Yeah. You're not supposed to, but I did it.
But
So
like
I mean,
I definitely was allowed to. So like I don't think I think I could and I did.
yeah.
So
I know. I love that argument when people are like, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, but
but
the
I
game
did
says
it.
I can. So I'm gonna go with that rule, right? Like when we play like Call of Duty or any kind of like game with my friends, and some people get like really frustrated, and I don't. I'm like I made an awesome play, that was great. Or if I get killed, I'm like, oh my god, that was awesome. And they're like, why are you fine with that? I'm like, because that other guy that did something that was really really
Yeah, like what
cool.
he did was super cool.
Like there might be a quick profanity for me. I'm like, fuck, like I get pissed for a second, but I'm like, God, that was awesome. Like I can't
Props,
believe,
dude. Props for
yeah.
killing me in that
And
specific way.
I'm fine either way, right? The one exception though I will say is Overwatch, because when you have a game that's designed around one objective, like just one thing,
Yep.
and everyone's doing their own thing, I'm like, guys, no, come on.
We come
There's a
on.
rule here.
Let's
The
stay
only rule
focused.
is the only rule is you stay with this car and you get it to the end. And they're just like all over the place. I'm like,
Just like, nah, we're not.
I can't play this game because you're not doing the one rule. And it's interesting too because you think about it, a great game actually establishes, I think, really clever or really good rules.
Yeah.
But then I think I don't want to say that there's not like having like a few amount of rules is great, because sometimes there's like a high amount of rules. I can't think of a game recently that we played with like a massive amount of rules, but you probably know.
I mean, sports are a great example, right? Like there are
Oh
certain
yeah,
things you
sports too.
can't do, but all of those rules are geared towards good sportsmanship, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
if you lose, don't take it out on someone else. That's just a rule that's in place, in different ways. It comes up in different ways. It's where the like whole card system kind of comes up, and it it applies to any game you're playing. I mean, like it applies to D&D too. Like there are sportsmanship rules for a dungeon master playing
Hmm.
with his players. There are rules for players playing with each other. There's just certain things that you know you can't do, but you can't do them not because it's wrong to
You
do something
know,
a certain way. It's just to make someone else not have fun.
you know what I would love to see a movie of? I would love to see like the NFL being played like gamers play video games.
Oh my god.
So the all the rules are the same, but all of a sudden, an NFL player goes, "I quit, I'm done." And it's like he throws off his helmet and walks off the thing,
Just
right?
walks off. Yeah.
Or just like the behaviors and mindset of a video gamer
Yeah.
in the football
Yeah.
realm,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's so like they're doing the same thing. They're both playing a game,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
And
We're doing this for fun, guys.
they're doing this for fun, and at the same time, you have these other gamers who just like they're just losing their minds all
Yep.
the time, right?
Yep.
It's
It's
interesting.
it's interesting. That's a really interesting comparison to draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it was awesome talking to you, and I'm so
Yeah, it was
happy
great
that you're on
talking
the
to you too.
podcast.
Yeah, of
I'll let you
course.
know when it goes live. It's probably gonna be like in July, I think.
Cool. That's when
Plus,
my birthday
plus now
is.
that I discovered like when's your birthday in July?
July 25th.
What? That's awesome. My friend's birthday is July 25th. Let's see.
Oh, seriously? Matt
July
LeBlanc's
20
birthday is July 25th too.
July 25th is a Saturday this week.
Hey,
So I'm gonna try and have this come out on the 21st then. See
nice.
what we can your birthday week.
See what we can do.
And I gotta find like I obviously the missing episodes. I'm like not missing episodes, but like I was surprised. Like wait a minute, I haven't done that one, that one, that one, that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I haven't edited a bunch yet. So I'm like, oh my god, I'm probably on episode like 30 or something. All right. Anyways, thank you so much, Palomi. It was
Yeah,
awesome talking to you.
it was good talking to you too. I'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.